The Central Valley of California is a flat, elongated stretch of land about 450 miles long that runs from northeast to southeast down the center of the state. Often called the breadbasket of the world, it's thought to be mostly farms and agriculture, but there are many towns and cities here that are home to nearly 7 million people. Not a lot of money in these parts. Drug use is rampant and the homicide rate is off the charts. Here are some of their stories. This is Murder in the Central Valley. This week's episode, Lewis, Stockton's other serial killer. There's been lots of talk about serial killers lately in the Central Valley, with Stockton police arresting 43-year-old Wesley Browley for a series of murders of random men. Let's talk about Stockton's other serial killer. It was 25 years ago. Our story starts at a factory named California Spray Dry. It's on the outskirts of Stockton. They produce spray-dried proteins and protein hydrolysate products for the feed, pet food, aquaculture, and fertilizer industries. Working away at this glamorous job was 32-year-old Lewis Peoples. So who was Peoples? Lewis James Peoples was born June 30th, 1962, to parents Loretta and Luther Peoples. His father was a verbally abusive alcoholic. Mr. Peoples was a bedwetter into his teens. Once even pooped his pants in public and was publicly humiliated by his mother. He was a troubled teen. His parents were worried about his heavy drug use and delinquent behavior, and eventually relinquished parental control to the sheriff. He became a ward of the court. His court-appointed juvenile counselor was later convicted of child molestation. Peoples admitted to being molested by him on several occasions. In high school, Lewis spent 18 months in juvenile detention. Despite being a troublemaker, his brother says that he was sensitive, quiet, and passive. His kids even said he was a loving father. His real troubles started in 1988 when he met his wife, Carol. The two started using methamphetamine. She claims he was never violent to her. He was a real gentle soul. That's what made what happened years later all the more curious. So, back to California Spray Dry Company. Peoples was promoted from what they called miscellaneous man, doing odds and ends around the plant, to operator. This position required him to closely monitor valve switches on dryer tanks. On several occasions, he failed to monitor the valves. This resulted in significant product damage. Lewis had displayed nervous and erratic behavior and was ultimately fired. In the morning of June 21, 1997, Peoples hit pay dirt when he broke into a van of an off-duty Alameda County Sheriff's deputy that was watching his son play baseball at Anderson Park in Stockton. When the deputy arrived back to his van, he noticed it was unlocked and had been ransacked. Lewis stole a purse, 2 checkbooks, and a fanny pack which contained a loaded .40 caliber Glock service pistol, his sheriff's deputy badge, and identification card. The checkbooks he stole had the deputy's home phone number on the checks. Lewis called him several times, one of which time Peoples said to the deputy, "Thank you for the fucking gun, you idiot," and then hung up. On September 16th at around 3:30 in the morning, employees at Peoples' old job, California Spray Dry, were coming into work. In the parking lot, they noticed that most of the vehicles had been vandalized. They saw a blue truck with someone leaning in the passenger side door. One of the employees went to investigate. He started toward the truck. Halfway there, Lewis pulled out the stolen gun and started shooting at the employee, who immediately fell to the ground. He noticed pain in his leg and torso. He had been shot twice. Lewis ran towards a hole in a fence, turned and fired 2 more shots, this time at the other employee, barely missing his head. The victim survived but spent 9 days in the hospital. Evidence techs recovered 7 .40 caliber shell casings. They also found a large pair of bolt cutters in one of the vandalized vehicles, and a 2-foot hole in the fence, and boot prints and dried blood. A few hours before the incident, a shift supervisor received a phone call at home. His number was unlisted, but employees had access to it. The caller on the phone addressed him by his first name and reported a fire in one of the plant's dryers. The supervisor did not recognize the voice but believed the caller knew the plant's procedures, so he rushed to the plant, but found no fire. This was probably to lure him to the property, but he went back home before Peoples arrived. The morning after the shooting, at about 3 a.m., a different Cal Spray shift supervisor received a phone call. The caller asked if anybody had been shot out there, if anybody had died out there. When the supervisor demanded that the caller identify himself, the caller asked whether anyone had gotten wasted out there last night. The caller then laughed and hung up. I guess Peoples held a grudge. Earlier, that same month, Lewis took a job as a tow truck driver for Charterway Tow. The company had a strict anti-drug policy and would screen its employees. On October 9th, during a routine drug test, they found methamphetamine in Lewis's system, so he was suspended for 30 days. He was quite upset by this. Being suspended from work meant no money. Peoples did what any criminal would do to solve this problem. On October 24, 1997, Peoples walked into a Bank of the West branch in Stockton and handed the bank teller a note that demanded money and threatened the use of a gun. He pulled out the stolen gun, cocked it, and aimed it at the teller. The teller gave Lewis a stack of bills totaling $900. He then fled the bank. 5 days later, at about 3 in the morning, the Charterway Tow operator received a call requesting a tow from a man who identified himself as Jason Lee. He requested a tow from 8 Mile Road, west of Interstate 5 to 1647 South Airport in Manteca. A little earlier, a man named Doug Stone called and requested a slide-back tow to take his Bronco from French Camp and 99 to Manteca. The slide-back tow driver was dispatched there. And another wheel-lift tow truck, operated by 29-year-old James Loper, was dispatched to the 8 Mile Road call to tow a black Mazda. At 3:35 he called dispatch to tell them he had arrived. At about 3:50 that morning, the San Joaquin County Sheriffs were on routine patrol on 8 Mile Road and saw a Charterway tow truck parked facing the wrong way on the side of the road with the lights and engine on. They looked in the truck but found nobody. One of the deputies noticed a figure under the truck. Loper was laying on his stomach. They thought he was stuck under his truck. When they pulled him out, they noticed he had been shot multiple times. James Loper was pronounced dead on the scene. Law enforcement closed the road and began an investigation. They found 9 .40 caliber shell casings. It looked like the shooter stood over Loper after he was under the truck and opened fire. They also found some boot prints, later determined to be Ariat brand boots. An autopsy later revealed Loper sustained 10 gunshot wounds, all when he was still alive. The very next day, the phone rang at Charterway Tow. A friendly voice was on the line. It was none other than Lewis Peoples. He said he was sorry to hear about Loper's death. He said he was a nice guy. Peoples also asked, now that they're short-staffed, if they wanted him to come back early from his suspension. They declined and told him he needed to serve the full 30 days. On November 4th, a little after 7:30 in the morning, the Stockton police responded to a shots-fired call at Mayfair Liquors. They found a bloody body laying in the parking lot. They entered the store. They found 14 spent shell casings, broken items, and a trail of blood that led to the body outside. The victim was 39-year-old Stephen Chaco, an Indian immigrant. Together with family owned the store. Investigators also recovered video footage from the scene. It shows Chaco standing in the main aisle of the store and an unknown subject with his arm extended. Later, the video shows the same subject standing behind the open drawer of the cash register, then moving to the left and slightly extending his right arm. Detectives believed the shell casings were the same as the ones from the tow truck driver murder. And from the video they could tell this guy looked a lot like the Bank of the West robber. About a week later, at around 9:55 in the morning, mother of three, 56-year-old Besson, Yu, and 46-year-old Chinese immigrant Jun Gao were working at Village Oaks Market in North Stockton. Peoples entered with the intent to rob and maim, not kill. A little later, someone reported hearing gunshots at the small market. When a sheriff deputy arrived, he found Gao laying face down in a pool of blood, and Yu was crouched behind the register. She had a weak pulse but unresponsive. The deputy performed CPR on her but out her 3 wounds. One of the bullets severed her spinal cord, and she died on scene. Gao sustained a single gunshot wound that perforated his left jugular vein and carotid artery. Investigators found .40 caliber shell casings near the cash register. It appeared that another register had been forcibly removed. The safe in the store's office was unlocked, and inside were rolls of coins. Evidence technicians recovered 5 shell casings, 4 bullets, and 2 bullet fragments from the scene. The shell casings looked like the same as the ones from the James Loper murder on 8 Mile Road. Detectives received information about a vehicle possibly associated with the crime. A 1990s 4-door, dark gray Nissan Stanza with primer or oxidation marks. The next day, November 12th, Stockton police saw a vehicle that matched the description of the suspect vehicle in the Village Oak Market murders in the parking lot of an apartment complex near the crime scene. The car was registered to Carol Peoples. Her husband, Louis James Peoples, was listed as a possible owner. The apartment complex was 1 block from Anderson Park and Mayfair Liquors, less than 1 mile from the Bank of the West, 2 miles from the Village Oaks Market, and 7 miles from the 8 Mile Road murder scene. Police recognized Lewis's name from the Charterway 2 investigation. Armed with a photo of Peoples, they waited for him to go to his car to make the arrest. He was carrying a backpack that contained a black nylon jacket, green knit gloves with silver duct tape on the fingers and backs, a black baseball hat, and had a California license plate. He also had a checkbook that belonged to the off-duty sheriff that he had stolen the gun from when he broke into his van. A police scanner, and a radio call book containing radio frequencies for police and fire personnel. Additionally, the backpack contained a blue folder with the handwritten words, "Biography of a Crime Spree." The folder contained newspaper clippings about the crimes and a note that read, "Some of the inserts in this scrapbook were merely for the motive of revenge. Some was to support my family when I was unemployed. Some of them started out to be one thing and turned into something a little more extreme. I have to admit I've always wanted to murder someone, and the idea of a crime spree has appealed to me for some time now, hence the crime spree. I guess we will see where it goes. I never thought the 2 people in the Village Oaks store would die. After all, I only shot them 2 times each." Aha! Also in his possession was a fanny pack that contained a small pair of binoculars, a Swiss Army-type knife, a mini Maglite flashlight, a buck-type knife in a holster with his initials, handcuffs, pepper spray, a Social Security card that wasn't his, a nylon gun holster, and the sheriff's deputy badge and identification. It appeared he had changed the photo on the ID to his own. Police searched Lewis's apartment that night after obtaining a search warrant. Police found the following items: a pair of Ariat brand boots with a print pattern similar to that found at the 8 Mile Road murder scene, a map of Stockton with marked locations, including Mayfair Liquors and Village Oaks Market, a Slim Jim, and a note that read, "CWT, Charterway Tow. Can I help you?" "Dude, yeah, check this out. You and the popos are all fucked up about Jimbo. He was a punk. He was on dope like the rest of your Charterway drivers. Jimbo didn't want to pay. That's why he got capped. He wasn't the goody-goody everybody thought he was. So get it straight." While being interrogated, he denied any involvement for about 10 hours. He finally confessed to the murders and the other crimes. He drew a diagram of where the murder weapon was. Later that morning, Peoples accompanied detectives to the location. Officers recovered a gray plastic bag in a vacant lot about 3 blocks from his apartment that contained a black leather pouch and a box of .40 caliber hollow point bullets. The pouch contained a handgun that had been altered, the serial number was destroyed and the breech face sanded down, but was later identified as the .40 caliber Glock pistol Lewis stole from the deputy's vehicle on June 21st. The pouch also contained 1 rubber glove, an off-white piece of paper, and 6 white envelopes, including one containing a note that read, "Give me all the 100s, 50s, 20s, and 10s. Make it fast, and nobody will get shot." In order to cover his tracks, Peoples used sandpaper to alter the barrel of the gun so they wouldn't be able to get ballistics off the bullets. When asked, he admitted to it. The trial revealed that Mr. Peoples had brain abnormalities consistent with methamphetamine abuse or head trauma, or both. The first jury couldn't reach a conclusion and ended in a mistrial. A second jury was impaneled and ultimately sentenced Lewis Peoples to death. January 24, 2021, Lewis James Peoples hung himself in his cell at San Quentin. He was 58. That's this week's edition of Murder in the Central Valley. Don't forget to follow, like, and subscribe. Thanks.